Hello, Chocolatiers. Welcome to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth review. Yes, I finally played it. Final Fantasy is one of my favorite gaming franchises. Despite me being new to the franchise, it all started when I was a young little lad of 14. Freshly probably from beating my meat in the deep years of masturbation. It all started when I got Final Fantasy 15. A game that a lot of people don't really like, including me. I didn't actually like it when I first played it. Initially, like everybody else, I hated the game and thought it was all lost. Fuck Final Fantasy is what my motto used to be. I used to say, who the fuck wants to play this shit? Dog-ass franchise. And in a world where we have games like Red Dead Redemption or Call of Duty, especially when you're the age of 14, why not play GTA 5 or Call of Duty instead of this? But back then, I was a weak-minded individual. I didn't think like that. I didn't know real gaming. I thought gaming was pew, 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 that's it. I didn't know what true storytelling was. I tried over and over to play the game to the point where twice a year I would play a new run and I still couldn't get into it. That was until 2020 at the height of COVID. I finally played this little game called, no, not Final Fantasy, Persona 5! Now, Persona 5 is one of my favorite games of all time. Sometimes, depending on the day, I say it is my favorite game of all time. But today, I'm just going to say it's one of my favorite games of all time. And Persona 5 had relationships. Day-to-day life crap, tests, mini-games, a couple of people I even called fucking family. Hell, I love half them motherfuckers half than my damn family! I don't know why I sound angry. I'm not. I'm actually in a good mood right now. And the game of Persona, as you know, especially Persona 5, is an amazing franchise with great soundtracks. Now, you're probably wondering, what the fuck does this have to do with Final Fantasy? I clicked on that Final Fantasy VII review. You're talking about Persona. Well, listen to me, Billy. Wait a fucking minute. I'll get to it, okay? That was because back then in those heydays of 14, I played Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, and I skipped cutscenes. I didn't care about stories like I said. But as I grew up and I played games like Persona 5, The Witcher, Cyberpunk, more recently, and even Persona, I went from hating story games and started to cherish them. This helped me grow as a gamer, and I started to fully immerse myself in real video games, as you would. Now, when I fully started immersing myself in these worlds, in the case of video games, I just listed that I chose to become the character in these worlds. So, for example, last year when I finally decided to fully go through Cyberpunk, I decided, instead of playing the main story and doing that shit, I did play the main story, but I was like, what would I do in this situation? Would I go take a nap? Would I go to the bar to get a drink? Would I go try to lay up with some prostitutes? Fuck, if I had the money and I lived in a futuristic world, probably. Yeah, I'd probably get some Putang, you're damn right. And so, when I started playing games like that and I started immersing myself in these worlds, my eyes started to open. And that leads me into Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, Final Fantasy VII Remake came out and took me by storm. While I never played the original, I, of course, knew who the fuck Cloud was and Sephiroth, and at the time, after completing that game, I felt pretty great. I immediately went and finished Final Fantasy 15 finally, which is much better because of the Royal Edition, which, hey, if you haven't played it, if you haven't beat it, if you haven't given it a chance, I suggest playing that. It's pretty good. And from there on, I considered myself a fan. Not a mega fan, because I've only played 2 in the franchise, but last year, I played Final Fantasy 16, a game with definitely some pacing issues, which we're going to get into with Rebirth, but a game that I overall just pretty much enjoyed. The combat was some of my favorites so far, and that helped because towards the third act of the game, like I said, it dragged a lot. The unfortunate truth of what I've noticed about these games started to come into fruition. The filler! Final Fantasy VII Rebirth starts out with Cloud witnessing the downfall of Sephiroth. After this, we are sprung into the open world with the crew from Part 1. The opening of the Grasslands is gaming perfection, in my opinion. The score with the open world, the big push out into something I won't forget. So much so that I 100%ed the Grasslands, and I got around 10 to 12 hours of playtime just in the fucking Grasslands doing all this shit. This is a brilliant testament to the game because the majority of side missions are actually pretty fun. Sure, there are duds that, outweigh all the good shit, but cut to chapter 3 and this is where the game starts its bullshit. Now, before I begin complaining, I do want to reassure you that this is coming from a place of love. I love this game. I love Final Fantasy. Okay, guys, just hear me out. But this game has major fucking pacing issues. So back to it. In the mines, we get separated as a team. Now, at first, I was like, whatever, fuck, Video games with huge parties like this do this so that way you can get some playtime in with the characters you somewhat wouldn't normally play as. But in the case of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it happens in chapters 3, 6, and 11. And I'm looking at you, motherfucker. A lot in those final chapters. What I mean by filler in these chapters, as stated before, is that it's easily explained by chapter 11. So I want to get into that. Chapter 11 lets you play as a little character that everybody loves called Kate Sith, a fucking talking cat. He's not as cool as Morgana. He's not as fucking cool as Morgana! I'll never forgive you for making me play this fucking section. So that's why they put it at the end game, because like, damn, they want to see what happens, they want to get there. You can't quit then. This would have been like in chapter fucking 2. I dead ass would have taken a long break from this game. It's too late though, I'm already involved. So the group gets split up and it's up to Kate, Barrett, and Tifa to get everyone back together. Initially I wouldn't be mad, but whose fucking idea was this? Whose fucking idea was this? So they make you grab boxes as the cat and you have to throw them at shit. Now, I hope I have video footage of this shit, because I swear to God, if you haven't played this is the most unbelievable fucking thing I've seen in gaming. So, it's to the point where I'm pretty sure this chapter goes on for like an hour-ish. Throwing boxes like it's almost as if the game developers had to meet a quota for like runtime before credits. And we're like, yes, how do we fucking meet that? They couldn't just be like God of War Ragnarok and be like, damn, we're kind of on pace, we're on track. Instead of making a trilogy, let's just make 2 games. And just, let's just end it here on 2. No, I feel like they're like, damn, we gotta meet a quota. We have to hit 3 games, a trilogy, so we have to do this bullshit. And so instead of a duology, like they should have, they do this shit. So you run around and you flip switches with the characters so they can get across and so on bridges and shit. The main problem with this game, though, is the filler like that. Because if it was just once or twice, and let's say this went on for 15 minutes, okay, that sucked, but whatever. There's a section in the game where you play as a character who gets a grappling hook. And you learn how to use that grappling hook, and it is kind of filler-ish, but not only is it teaching you something, but it only lasts about 10-15 minutes. But this section, I swear, unless it was just the mind playing tricks on me, I promise you it lasts 45 minutes plus. Now, ending the game on a certain point, especially with 2, is pretty much like eating too much Taco Bell and having to take a shit in the morning. It's a fine idea, okay? But it makes the game feel overly full. These things are great in small doses, but not big fucking portions. And that leads me to part 2. Everything else is perfect. Now, I wouldn't say that something is necessarily perfect, but in this game it is. Outside of the filler and pacing issues, this game comes pretty damn close. So here goes all the fun mini games and side activities that you can expect to play in this magnum opus. The piano mini game, much like The Last of Us Part 2's guitar minigame, but harder because it's on the piano. Queen's Blood, which is pretty much a whole game in itself, an amazing card game that could have been sold separately, like a Hearthstone if you would. Then we have Chocobo Hustle and Moogle Mischief, which are mini games involving collecting Moogles and racing Chocobo. Then we have the Dolphin Racer, Dolphin Show, and Fort Condor, which is like a strategy mini game, also a game on its own. Then we have Jump Frog, which is like that mini game in Fall Guys. We have Run Wild, which is if you took Ted Lasso, Red 13, and you mixed it with Rocket League. Pirated Rampage, which is a shooting gallery. Galactic Saviors, being a space shooting minigame. G-Bike, which is the race on the bike from part 1, but now in minigame format. The actual Chocobo races, which is where you actually race real Chocobo. Desert Rush, where you destroy boxes in a time limit. 3D Brawler, the Creed, but it's Creed 8-bit simulator. Then you finish up having a great gear game, gliding game, Cactuar game, Colossum Arena Fighter, and more. Now, if you have any interest in those games, you could spend hours on them alone. Hours and hours and hours. And I know you're probably sitting there wondering, why does this make the whole game as a whole a masterpiece? Well, it's because there's like 1,000 different games in one package outside of the main story that you can spend hours on. And I really think that that is a welcome addition, because while some of these mini games weren't for me, they're still good. They're still well polished. Like, for example, the bike mini game. I didn't really love that. I liked what it was doing. I liked the gameplay, the controls. But there's other people who love that, try to do the time limit stuff, whatever. I just don't like stuff like that. I like more like the Chocobo race, which is more like Mario Kart. Down my alley. Part 3. The gameplay itself. Now, if you have never played a Final Fantasy, they are pretty weird and are never consistent. In 15, you can swap characters and you can kind of hold the buttons to do auto fight. It's very weird. Final Fantasy 16 from last year plays just like Devil May Cry, and you can't swap your party members. In this game, it's like a mix of the OG games, mixing turn-based and newer combat models. So if you play as Cloud, for example, you can change to another character and play as them, or continue using Cloud and use a menu to give commands to other party members, which is something that 16 kind of does because you can control the dog, and it was pretty cool doing that. But like I said, none of these games are very consistent as far as the gameplay goes. They always change up something, which is very nice. Gameplay-wise, much didn't change for Part 1, but in Rebirth, they introduced the synergy system. What this means is that if I'm using Cloud, Barret, and Red 13, once our meters are filled up enough, I can synergize with a teammate for optimal damage, or I can use moves that increase our gauges to 3 instead of 2. Stuff like that. The RPG elements are also fine as well. Crafting is a new addition. Skill trees are set at bookstores available in towns or benches to heal up. I wish that they were more available. Like, I wish I can go to my menu and do it, but that's just a minor complaint because pretty much benches, stuff that is everywhere and few and far between. These books carry new weight as its choices help out synergy abilities a lot. So you have a lot of choice on what you want to do. So if you know that you use Red 13 a whole lot more than Barret, you probably want to upgrade his skill tree a little bit more, leaning towards stuff that doesn't help him with Barret if you know you're not going to have Barret on your team. Stuff like that. Part 4. Story. With a little light spoiler. Following the events of the previous games, the team leaves Midgard to chase after Sephiroth. But here is where it gets interesting and spoilery. So, Zack Farron reaches Midgard with a comatose Cloud, and it's revealed that he resides in a timeline where the end of the world is imminent as a result of the planet's Mako having been completely depleted. Now, the reason why this is getting kind of weird is because while not playing the original Final Fantasy, I do know the story, and from what everyone has been seeing and saying, we have all kinds of weird multiverse shit that's going on. Everybody wants to do the multiverse now. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Right now, I'm kind of on the mid-ground of Final Fantasy. If they can stick the landing in Part 3, I think it'll be pretty good. But this is what I meant earlier when I said the pacing was kind of a problem. The game will show you this crazy shit happening just to have the Kate Sith chapter up next, for example. I'm interested in this story and love this story and world, but I hate how they chose to tell it, and I hope they can fix it going forward. Part 5. Where does this leave us? Now come closer. I get it. I know I'm black. It's okay. No urge. Overall, I enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I know I bitched a lot about that Kate Sith section. That's fucking a gaming flaw, okay? But there's also other sections in the game that have pacing issues. I think as a fan of the series, it's a great addition and a great sequel as well. I think going forward, I tweak pacing and filler segments, but overall, just because I bitched about that, just because I was mad about that, doesn't mean that I wouldn't leave gameplay as it is. They really did something special here. From the combat, to the music, to the graphics, the world, and the characters. This is a love letter to Final Fantasy VII, and the franchise as a whole. If you never played a Final Fantasy game before, I believe this new remake series might be the perfect place to start. Just know that going forward, there are going to be a few pacing issues, but once again, just because I felt that way, doesn't mean that maybe you won't. And with that, I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a strong 9 out of 10. And my current game of the year, despite those complaints. A game that could have been a masterpiece, but is an outstanding game still. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. And comment down below, let me know if you've played this game. Let me know your thoughts on the Final Fantasy franchise as a whole. And with that, I will catch you guys on the next one.